Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. In this video, I want to talk about the current state of MapleStory. So what does that mean exactly? Basically, I want to talk to you guys about how I feel the game is right now. Like what's MapleStory like? What's it like playing the game in 2025? What the future might look like? What are some of the problems in the game at the moment? And some of the big changes that maybe if you haven't played the game in a long time, you would find surprising now if you were to come back to the game. I want to give you guys the information about MapleStory as somebody who's been playing this game as their main game for many years now, and I've been playing it at a very high level as well. So this is not coming from the perspective of somebody who plays the game casually. I play this game literally every single day for so many hours and have progressed a ton on the game. So for the first part of this video, I want to tell you guys some of the big changes that have come to MapleStory and what the meta kind of is like in 2025 at the moment versus what it was in the past. So these days in 2025, MapleStory events are super powerful and are one of the best ways for you to get ahead and make your progression. So what do I mean by events? Basically, there's this event list that you have here, and you can see that during events on MapleStory, there are a lot of them, and it can feel a little bit overwhelming, but I do make a lot of event guides that help you understand the event and tell you exactly what to do to help your progression. But what I'm trying to say is there are many events in MapleStory that look something like this, where you log in every day, you press a button, and you get a bunch of free rewards. Or maybe you have to kill a bit of monsters, and then you can buy stuff from a shop that has a bunch of good rewards for your character. That's like the basic structure of MapleStory events these days, but the rewards are really good. And by really good, I mean they can get you to over 8,000 Legion just within like 2 months of playing the game. If you're somebody who hasn't played for a while and you still think Legion is like this super hard thing where you have to get so many characters 200 plus, it's not. They've made it super easy, and you can get literally hundreds of these items that level you to 200 super quickly. These things called extreme growth potions. They are very widely available in events these days, and they just get your Legion up to 8,000 Legion super easily. The other thing is level 260 is now the almost like starter level on this game. So 200 to 260 has been streamlined and is super quick these days. There's something that comes around pretty often called hyper burning. Basically what hyper burning is it gives you a ton of free rewards as you're leveling up from 200 to 260. Like you get a bunch of higher level symbols, a ton of nodes, you get a title that has like really good bonus stats on it. So long story short, they've made the process to get to 260 way faster on this game, and you can just do your dailies like daily kill quests or monster park and hit 260 just within like a month of playing the game, like from a brand new fresh account. So what I'm saying is they made it a lot easier to get to 260 and to have 6,000 or 8,000 Legion plus super quickly on this game within like a few months of playing the game. So most people in 2025 MapleStory, when they come back, they realize that the game kind of starts to get like a lot more grindy once you're 260 plus and your Legion is like at least 6k. The game gives you a lot of tools that just put you at that point super quickly. But when you hit 260, you are going to be in a new area called Continental Grandis. You could kind of think of this as like the modern Arcane River. So if you remember the Arcane River with like Vanishing Journey and so on, this is like the new Arcane River, Continental Grandis, with Cernium, Arcus, and so on in the further and further regions. But the main thing about 260 is you unlock your 6th job. So if you still don't know, 6th job is like a thing in the game now and is pretty much the main progression system that you're going to be involving yourself with. And as you progress your 6th job, you will get super duper strong on this game. To keep it super quickly, how 6th job works is your 6th job enhances your 5th job skills, your 4th job skills, and gives you brand new skills altogether. So it just gives you a tremendous amount of damage essentially. But to progress your 6th job, you're going to need something called Soul Urda Fragments and Soul Urda. And to keep it super simple, you just get these from grinding. What that means is the real grind for MapleStory starts at 260 plus, and this is where it gets like classic MapleStory behavior. Like you're gonna have to start grinding a lot, and this is how you get stronger. Just like in 5th job where you needed a lot of nodes to level up your skills, for 6th job it's the same thing. You gotta grind a lot, and then you gotta level up your 6th job skills, and that's a big part of the game, and that's how the progression mostly works. There's still star forcing and potentialing and all this stuff, but none of this is new. It's all the same things that have been in the game for almost like a decade now, where you just star force your gear, potential it, flame it, all this stuff that makes you stronger. But the 6th job is one of the main progression systems that have been added in the last year and a half that makes your character way stronger. Now, the next thing that I gotta talk about that is very important to MapleStory. So maybe some of you guys have remembered in the past how you kind of needed like a farmer character where you had a side character that you would farm on and then you had your main. So this was most notable during the Kana era where everybody had a high level Kana and the Kana would farm them a ton of resources and you would suicide your Kana and all this stuff. If you remember the Kana meta, definitely leave me a comment below about it to see how many people are like more old heads these days, because the Kana meta is like an old head thing these days. It's been so long since it's been a thing. We used to have the Kana meta before. What's good about 2025 Modern MapleStory is you don't need to have a farmer character. You can progress straight to endgame literally with just your main, and obviously your legion that gives you stats, but you can just have your main, grind it all the way to 290, which is a huge journey. Just so you know, hitting 290 takes literally like thousands of hours. Like, it's not something that is easy. It's not like grinding on MapleStory is fast these days. No, like once you hit 280 plus, in my opinion, it gets pretty slow, 285 plus especially. But yeah, the whole point is because of the way the game is now versus what it was back then, you could just grind on your main now and self-sufficient fund yourself. You don't need to have like a farmer side character. So that's really good because you could just play what you want. You don't have to play another class that you might not necessarily like to play, so you can progress. The other thing that's really relevant about Modern MapleStory is boss mules. Now, boss mules were more relevant in the past, but they're still really good these days. And if you don't know what a boss mule is, basically it's a side character. That's why I have a bunch of characters at 260, right? Like my Lara, my Fire Poison, Night Lord, Hero, Cannon Master, and whatnot. These characters, their entire purpose is to kill bosses for me and make money. So there's this guy called the Collector, and you could sell him boss crystals and make a ton of money. So for example, I sold all of these crystals from my Lara, and you could see a lot of these crystals are worth, half a bill or higher, which makes me a lot of money, and I could use that to progress my account. But here's the thing about boss mules though, is these are not things that you can work on early. This is like a later game activity. So if you're somebody who wants to get back into MapleStory, this is something that you can do in the future to fund yourself. Usually MapleStory progression is based around your main for a long time, but once your main gets quite a bit stronger, the cost of getting stronger becomes higher and higher. So you're going to need to increase your income, and increasing your income on this game, a really good way to go about it is creating boss mules that just make you a ton of money. So that's like what MapleStory is like these days, where you have your main and you get to 260 and get to AK Legion relatively easily, and then you start grinding your main, and then once your main gets really high level, you start making boss mules, and then the boss mules make you even more money to fund your main. That's the gist of MapleStory. That's basically how it works. Now, when it comes to bossing, there are a lot of bosses that are like more interesting these days. So the Grandest region has bosses like Saren, Kalos, Kaling, and Limbo, and even Extreme Lotus. So like the bossing scene in MapleStory, in my opinion, is better than it was in the past because we have a lot of different bosses at different difficulties. So it feels like you're progressing and always working towards the next boss, which is a really good feeling. Now, there are still some really dumb bosses like Damien. I don't think anybody in this whole game likes Damien. This is one of the most annoying bosses in the whole game, but it's good that there are multiple difficulties of bosses like normal Saren, easy Kalos, not just like the chaos difficulty, and that's it. Don't be like this guy wasting his time making his own food. You gotta get back to getting gains on MapleStory. If you spend an hour a day making yourself food, you would be missing out on around 4.5 billion messes a week and like 200 fragments. That's why I partnered up with Factor to give you guys a fresh, never frozen gourmet meals straight to your door. I've tried it out myself, and the food is unironically good and takes only 2 minutes to be ready. My community loves it too. So stop being dumb and wasting all your mesos and get Factor using my link below to get 50% off your first box and free shipping. Thank you guys so much for supporting me, and thank you Factor for sponsoring, and enjoy the rest of the video. So now that we have a better picture of what MapleStory is like in 2025, I want to talk about some of the problems that the game has, because yes, a lot of things have gotten better, but some things are still so annoying and make it hard for me to recommend this game to other people. The first thing on this game that I don't think gets talked about enough is the fact that you cannot try every single class before you create it. Something that I've noticed is a lot of people complain about things that help their progression necessarily, right? Which are totally valid, and I complain about the exact same things. But for me personally, I feel like complaining about the core functionality of the game, right? Like this is an MMORPG game and it has so many issues that are not relevant in other games. Like it has so many things that could be modernized to make this game so much better, and in my opinion could make this game a much more mainstream game if they redesigned like the foundation of this game in certain ways. Like for example, a lot of other MMOs have a way to try out the different classes in kind of like a trial mode or like a creative mode, like a Minecraft term, but MapleStory does not have that, which is very frustrating, because when somebody comes into the game, it's so hard for them to figure out what character they want to play, because the characters dramatically change as you fund them more and more and more. I have seen countless players create like a Dawn Warrior, for example, and they think it's really good early game, but once they get to late game, they realize it's really boring and they want to try something else, and then it's so hard to transition to a new class because you already put all of your resources in the first one, and then starting over again just feels like shit and you're so far behind again. It's very bad. And for me personally, it's to the point where I cannot recommend this game until we reach a point that you can try out every single class without having to put hundreds or thousands of hours into it before you figure out whether you want to play it or not. Like that's, for me, that's step one. Like that's step one problem of this game. You still cannot try out every single class. Yes, again, I want to make it clear, there are so many other problems that are related to your progression and RNG systems and stuff like that, and those are totally valid and I hate them too. But in terms of recommending this game to others and the current state of the game, I find it so ridiculous that there are literally 50 classes in the game and you can't try them all out before you create the character. You have to create the character, fund it, level it, do everything normal in terms of progression with it. Then you can figure out whether or not you like it or not, which I just find completely ridiculous. It's to the point that if somebody creates a hyperburn and they don't like it, they would literally just make a new account instead of continuing with their current account, because they already used all of the resources on that character they didn't like. So you just have to make a new account and then try out a different class, which is such a dog shit way of going about it. The next thing that I have a big problem with on this game is the cash shop not being universally accessible across all of your characters. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, basically there's this thing in that game called cash shop. It's basically where you can spend real money to get mostly cosmetics. Sometimes you could get other things that help your progression, but it's mostly cosmetics. And the problem with this is that you cannot transfer these items to any character you want on your account. So essentially you're paying real money to not have full access to the things that you're buying, which I find just completely ridiculous, to be honest with you, and very counterintuitive. I think that Nexon believes that if they restrict the cash shop like the way it is now, it would force people to buy multiple sets of the same item across multiple characters, thus making them spend more, which is probably true. But this whole like whale meta in MapleStory, I feel like if they cut back a little bit on it and made it so that the average person spends just a little bit of money instead of having a very few amount of people spend a lot of money, it might be better for the game. I don't know. I'm not a game dev. I'm not a marketing business like super god tier analyst, but it's very frustrating to know that you have a lot of items and you cannot transfer them to other characters. Now, there are a couple times in the year where you could transfer the items to other characters, special events called cash shop transfer events. But I find it incredibly disrespectful and frustrating, to be honest with you, that you can't just transfer your items anytime you want. That alone, in my opinion, would make the game so much better. And honestly, how many of you would probably be down to buy an X or like cash shop items if you could transfer them on any character you want? I feel like a lot of people would go from never buying cash shop items to all of a sudden they would start buying stuff because they could use it on any character that they want instead of just one character. So for example, the items that I have on this character, I cannot get them on my hero, for example, because Hayato and Hero, the classes that I play, they don't share the same cash shop inventory because they're from different factions in the game. You can only share items within the same faction. So somebody like me who mains Hayato, I can only share items with other Hayato characters on my account or Kana characters because we're from the same faction. But that's only 2 total classes out of 50. Those 2 things, in my opinion, are enough for me to not even recommend this game to the average player, to be honest with you. What I'm talking about is the average person who plays video games just the average person who plays MMOs. Those two things, not being able to try out classes and not having a universal cash shop, that alone is enough for me to tell somebody who wants to get into MMOs to not play this game. I'm just being completely honest, and saying that does hurt me because obviously I'm a MapleStory content creator and I would benefit financially and everything by having people play this game, right? But I'm just being 100% honest with you guys. If you're somebody who plays an MMO, I wouldn't recommend this game. I think other MMOs are better just because of those two things alone. But here's the thing. If you're somebody who has played MapleStory before and want to get back into the game, I do recommend the game. I really do, because the way that the game is now still is infinitely better than what it was in the past. Like the amount of quality of life that we've gotten these days in modern MapleStory and how fast you can get to level 260 and finish your Legion is so nice and so convenient. It feels so much better than it has ever been before. Like the amount of free stuff that they give you to progress throughout events and stuff like that is super OP, to be honest with you, and it feels really good. Now you can feel free and disagree with me and say, you know, you would still recommend this game to others. 100%, that's totally valid. You can do whatever you want. That's just for me personally, trying to bring someone outside of the MapleStory sphere into MapleStory. I feel like not being able to try out every class and not having a universal cash shop is too big of a hurdle at the moment to try and bring this game mainstream. I don't think this game could become a mainstream MMO until those two things at least are addressed. But when it comes to trying to bring someone who used to play MapleStory back into the game, I think it's super good. Now, let me show you something about MapleStory grinding and what it's like in 2025. So MapleStory grinding in 2025 is the easiest it has ever been, to be honest with you, when it comes to mains. Now, in the past, there was like Kana farming and stuff like that, you know, you could just hold down one button. But now with 6-Drop, there's a skill called Soul Janus that just makes it so that you can place down summons that just kill the whole map. So for example, I'm going to place this ball down, and then I'm going to place another one here, and then I'm going to place another one here. And then all I have to do is essentially just press my mobbing skill every like 7 seconds, and the entire map dies. Like straight up, this is what MapleStory mobbing is like in 2025. Now, to be fair, you're not going to be able to get access to this level of grinding right away. But the grinding is pretty brain dead once you're level 260 plus, maybe 265 plus as you level up this skill just a little bit, maybe to like level 10. You can get some super brain dead grinding. Like it's very easy to grind. The thing is, the XP curve is pretty slow when you're end game, right? Like it takes a long time to level, but the process of leveling itself is very easy. There's also vac pets in the game now, which just suck up all of the items around them. As you can see, all the items are just kind of like flying towards me. Instead of going on every single individual little platform, the items just come towards me, which leads me to my next problem of the game, vac pets. These things are not available all the time. They're only available like 2 or 3 times throughout the year, which makes it super annoying to get back into this game, to be honest with you, because if you don't have one of these, the maps are literally designed to have one. If you don't have one, you're just putting so much more effort than somebody who does have one, and it's very frustrating. Not only that, these things are incredibly expensive. It's reached a point where I really don't even think this game is free to play anymore. It's quote unquote free to play to download, but because you have to spend literally $10 to $15 resurrecting this pet every single month, and this pet is so crucial for your progression, it's basically a monthly payment game. Like, to be honest with you, it's not exactly the same because you could still play without it technically, but I would say like 99% of people who have progressed pretty far into the game have a vac pet, which means that they are probably paying the recurring payment of resurrecting this thing every single month. To be honest with you, it's not a free-to-play game. Like, I feel like that's pretty disingenuous to say in 2025, is that MapleStory is a free-to-play game. Like, it technically is, but realistically, you're gonna have to buy pets, like even just regular pets, and then you're gonna have to pet upgrade them, which is not free regardless. You could get free pets from the reward point shop, but you still have to buy the pet upgrades at least. And then even more realistically is once you're 260 plus and you learn about vac pet, the maps are specifically designed around having one. So you will just suffer so much if you don't have one. And I've seen people who literally never spend on the game, they fold and get the vac pet because of how important and how much easier it makes the progression. Like, it makes your training prog go from like you have to focus and actually like stare at your screen while you grind to like you could just not even pay attention anymore, and then like the map just gets almost auto looted just because of how OP the vac pet is. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about is some of the problems with gear progression and some of the problems with certain RNG elements of the game. right? So for those who are watching this video and have no idea like what the type of gear is, I'm going to keep it super simple. So there is different types of gear on this game, right? So there's like the sea array set of gear, which is kind of like starter level gear. And then as you upgrade your gear in this game, there's different sets that you can get that have different effects and get stronger and stronger and stronger, right? Pretty natural MMO stuff. You just get a bunch of gear. The gear gets stronger as you level up more and more, and you get better and better gear, right? Now, one of the best sets of the game are called the Pitched Boss set, which are a bunch of gear in this game that you get from killing really hard bosses. But here's the thing though, the drop rate of these are incredibly low. Like it's a super low chance of getting one. And not only that, you have to enhance it to a point where it's usable. If you don't enhance it to the point that it's usable, the previous gear sets are better. Now, the problem with that is the chance to get some of these items is so incredibly low. You can go years and years and years without getting them, which really does not feel good, because the end game in MapleStory, it essentially just becomes log in once a week, kill your bosses, don't get anything, log off, right? So it becomes very, very boring, and in my opinion is very annoying. Here's the thing though that I feel like a lot of people might have a tough time accepting, is that not only is this set of gear nowhere near as important as people make it out to be. Like, yes, it's important to get it, and yes, it makes you stronger, but at the end of the day, you can still clear most of the bosses in the entire game without it. The only thing that in my opinion, you can't really clear without it is hard limbo and maybe hard culling, but you can make an argument that you could still clear hard culling even without it. So basically what I'm trying to say is the end game in MapleStory is not that fun in my opinion. It becomes kind of just like a waiting game for things to happen, and you kind of run out of stuff to do, which I don't think is good. But at the same time though, it's important to remember that over 99% of players will never reach this point of things being boring and you have nothing to do. So let's just look at how many people are level 290. 0.26% of accounts have reached level 290. So this number is across all of the global MapleStory servers. It's not just Kronos or Hyperion. It includes all of the interactive worlds and everything else. So 0.26% of people are probably at the point where the end game feels pretty slow and pretty boring to them. But to be honest with you, of this 0.26%, a lot of them are not even at the point where they are constantly waiting for drops. They could still get stronger in other ways and still have things that they could do in the game. I'm talking about the real end game, like when people are super high level, they really have all their finished gear, and like their Legion characters are all done and funded as well. When you're at that point, it's super boring and there's nothing to do in this game. A lot of people have this fear of getting to that point where they have nothing to do in this game, right? But like I said, it's important to know that 99% of people will never reach that point. That's just how it is. It takes so long to get to that point. So everything up to that point, you still have something to do, and there is a way of progressing. I really don't think somebody who is level like 280 or something should be stressing themselves out like to such a high degree about not getting a boss drop, because at the end of the day, they're still like level 280 and they could still grind in other ways to get stronger. But another point that I want to make about this entire pitched boss argument is I do think they should make a way of getting these items slightly more guaranteed. I don't think it should be too easy. A lot of people have suggested that there should be a pity system that just like straight up gives it to you after a certain amount of boss clears. I don't think that's the case. In my opinion, if I were to go about it, the best way that I think to make a pitched boss pity system is to go about making a bunch of more extreme versions of bosses. So for example, there would be an extreme Damien that had a higher chance of dropping the eye patch, extreme Lucid, Will, Gloom, Vihilla, Darknell, and they all have a higher chance of dropping their respective pitched boss item. Now, the reason why I think that's a better way of going about it is because who suffers the most from not getting these items? The person that suffers the most from not getting these items is the person who has cleared these bosses for a very, very long time and is already super strong without them, because they've done everything within their control to get as strong as possible without these items. And now the rest of their progression is just praying that you get the item to drop. So in my opinion, I think somebody who is super high level and super strong probably deserves to get this item more than somebody who just hit 260 and cleared hard Lucid for their first time and got lucky. Now, maybe people disagree with me. Maybe that's not like valid, but that's just the way I see it. I feel like somebody who has cleared this boss hundreds of times should get the item before somebody who cleared it once, right? Like, I feel like that makes sense. Now, the reason why going about it through extreme bosses is good is because killing an extreme version of a boss, like we have Lotus, for example, example. Lotus has a bunch of difficulties. Lotus has normal, hard, and extreme. Normal and hard are pretty accessible and clearable by most people, but extreme is not. If you want to clear extreme Lotus, you're going to have to fund quite a bit. But the reward of clearing extreme Lotus is it has a higher chance of dropping those pitched boss items that we talked about. So the effect of this on the game is that you can get to a point where you can get really strong, clear an extreme version of the boss, have a higher chance of getting that pitched boss item that you desire so badly because you kind of earned it. Like you earned it by getting to the point where you can kill the extreme version, which has the highest chance of dropping it, and then you can get it instead of just relying on the super easy version where you could just blow it up in one hit and then pray that you get it. So for me, I think that's a better way of going about a pitched pity system, because if you have a pitched pity system that makes it so that you can just kill hard Lotus like 20 times and then you get it, you're going to have people that are relatively pretty weak, which with all of the end game gear, which in my opinion doesn't feel as fair as somebody who got super, super strong and grinded their butt off like 100 times more than the person who's like a lot weaker than them. Why should they have the same gear? My whole point is somebody who grinds a lot should have better gear than somebody who doesn't grind as much. That's the whole point. And if you grind a lot, then you're going to kill the extreme bosses and you will get better gear. If you don't grind a lot, then you won't kill the extreme bosses and you're going to have to rely on RNG more. I think that's a better way to go about it because it makes you rewarded a lot more for grinding and getting to the point where you can kill the extreme boss, because then you'll get the pitched boss that you desire so badly. I hope that makes sense. I hope my point makes sense and I didn't like ramble a little too much. If you understand what I'm saying, please let me know because I think that makes sense. Now, the last thing that I also want to talk about is the familiar system. Jake and Joe uploaded a video about familiars, and I think it's a really good video. I'm going to have it linked below as well. But long story short, again, for people who are watching this video and maybe they want to come back to the game, there's another system in the game that makes you stronger called familiars. And basically what you do is you kill monsters. These monsters will drop familiar cards. You upgrade the familiar cards, and the familiar cards give you a chance of getting some really good stats that make you stronger. But here's the thing. Not only is the chance to get something good so incredibly low, right? But that's not even the worst part of it, right? That's not even the worst part of it, because at the end of the day, having a low chance isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just means you have to grind, right? And this is a grindy game. The problem is this familiar system is counterintuitive to the way that the game functions at the moment. The reason for that is these familiar cards only drop in low level areas. So because you grind and you keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger, it means you are going to leave these areas pretty quickly and then have no access to these familiar cards at all. So what that ends up being is if you don't get lucky when you're early into the game with these familiar cards, you will have almost no opportunity in the future to go back and get them. So for somebody who is not lucky and they didn't hit any familiar cards, they can reach a super high level and be almost permanently weaker than everybody else just because they didn't get lucky. And because you have to rely on getting lucky early game, it's a dog shit system. Now, there are many ways to alleviate this. Obviously, you could introduce familiar cards in higher level regions, which I think is a very, very good thing that they should do. And I'm begging if a single soul works at Nexon or knows anybody that works at Nexon, please push for familiars to be dropped in higher level areas, because it doesn't make sense that they're only accessible in early level areas, but they make such a decent impact on your damage output. It doesn't make any sense. Another solution is that you can introduce a way to re-roll them with either mesos or familiar points. That way you could just get literally any familiar that you want. You don't have to get the same ones that everybody else has because everybody's training in the same areas. That way you could just re-roll them. Like similarly to how you can re-roll cubes with mesos, you should be able to re-roll familiars with mesos. Whatever the cost is, I don't know. As long as like the option is there, it'd be fine with me. So in conclusion for this video, I hope you learned something new. I hope you have a better understanding of what the game is. I want to make something very clear. I am not a doomer. I have a genuine belief. 100% of my soul believes that this game will keep getting better and better and better. There's this really cool website called Steam Charts that shows you the activity of a game over its existence on Steam, right? And a lot of people love to say that MapleStory is a dying game and nobody plays this game and there's no point in playing it or anything like that. Now, keep in mind that MapleStory is not only on Steam, and most people, in my opinion, play this game on the Nexon launcher. So the number isn't necessarily important here. The whole point that I want to say is this game has been continuously growing year after year, specifically since like 2022. Every single year since 2022, the game has dramatically gotten better and better and better, and the average player base has been increasing year after year, which goes to show that at the end of the day, no matter what you believe about the game, it is objectively getting better year after year. Now, you can make arguments that the game is not getting better fast enough. I totally get that, but you can't say that the game isn't getting better year after year. It is getting better year after year because more and more and more and more of people are becoming regular players. I was playing in this game since back here, since like early 2018 and onward. I've been playing almost every single day. So I've seen this game be dead in quotation marks for years and years. And I've seen this game get better after update. And I can assure you that it is getting better and will continue to get better. And I have no doubt in my mind that it will. So I have high hopes for the future. Me criticizing the game, giving my opinion is not hating on the game. I'm just giving you my opinion as somebody who's been playing for a very long time and what I think could be better. What are the big problems in the game? I started this video talking about what are some of the good things and how the early game progression is and what the progression in the game looks like in its entirety. And I also talked about what the problems of the game are. I acknowledge the pros and cons of this game. If you walk away from this video saying like, Duky's just a doomer, he's stupid as fuck, doesn't know what he's talking about, hey, I tried my best. But if you want to play this game, I think if you are somebody who played in the past, I think you should definitely pick it back up again. If you're somebody who wants to try it for the first time, sure, at the end of the day, you could try it, but I don't think most people who play MMOs would probably enjoy this game for very long if it's their first time playing it, like truly first time, like they never played it in the past. With that all being said though, if you enjoyed this video, definitely subscribe. Let me know what you think about everything I said in the comments. Let's have a discussion about it. Be nice to each other. And with that all being said, I appreciate you guys for watching and make sure to check out Factor down below. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much to my members, Blazefire, Shooms, Shagad, Ravi Espa, Koga, Piconir, Skittles, Dante Victory, CK, J, Blunt Poppy Supreme Oil Backwards, Vampiric X, Fresh and Juicy, Assassin, and Migu. I appreciate you guys so much, and shout out to everyone who submitted fan art. If you always want to submit fan art, it's in the Discord linked below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.